energy of the black body radiation is quantized, and then Einstein was there around, that time. So how old was he? He was 21 years old because Einstein was born in the year 1879, 10 years after Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. So he was just 21 years young person like you. And then after 4 years, Einstein said, no, no, it's just not the property of the black body radiation. In fact, it's the property of all radiation. Wherever radiation exists, energy is quantized, and the quantum of energy associated with any radiation of frequency nu is h nu. And later on, in 1926 or 27, a chemist actually called it photon. So that's how. So photon is nothing but energy, light. So that is abundant in the universe. So as you can see, it's 10 per 8 per meter cube, whereas electrons are something like 0.06 per meter cube, because they are not free. They are not actually floating around freely. They are either inside the solids, inside the atoms, inside the molecules, etc. They are not floating around, but photons are actually floating around. That's the reason why we are able to see each other. That's the reason why we are able to read books. That's the reason why we are able to see the nature, isn't it? Just because photons are around. And our eyes are actually sensitive to the visible range of these photons, which goes from something like 4,000 angstrom to 6,500 angstrom. Okay, so there are and then the forces, you know that there are fundamental forces like strong nuclear force which binds the nucleus together. Then we have electromagnetic force which actually binds the atom together and molecules together. Then molecules to molecule actually are bound to form bigger materials, and then some similarly the stars are formed, planets are formed. So therefore those are all residual electromagnetic forces whose strength at the fundamental level is of the order of 10 to the minus 2 if we take the strong nuclear force to be 1. So with respect to strong nuclear force, they are actually down by 100 times. And then we have weak nuclear force, which is the beta decay. The most famous example is the beta decay. When one mother nucleus decays to a daughter nucleus with the emission of electron and an antineutrino. So this beta decay is an example of weak process, weak interaction, or weak force. And that strength is of the order of 10 to the minus 12. And then we have the gravitational force, whose strength is of the order of 10 to the minus 40. Very, 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 very weak compared to the strong nuclear force or even electromagnetic force or even weak force. Very weak, the weakest one. But as you shall see, it is this gravitational force which actually plays the role, the solitary role in building the large scale structure of the universe. That is to say, in building the solar system, in building the stars, solar system, planets, galaxies, clusters of galaxies, and so on. So, so you can see the strong nuclear force plays its role to build nucleus, starting from quarks to neutrons and protons to nucleus. Now, once the nucleus is built, then the electromagnetic force actually binds the nucleus to the electrons to form atoms, and then from atoms to molecules, molecules to bigger material objects. Now, once bigger material objects actually are formed, then mass takes over, gravitation takes over, and starts building its own structure. So, strong nuclear force, electromagnetic force, and gravitational force. These are the three forces which are responsible for the various bound states that we see around us. Weak force, unfortunately or fortunately, does not play any role in binding mechanism. It only plays role in the decay processes, which I will not discuss now. Okay, so I go to the next slide. Okay, I just told you that our universe is expanding. How did you know that it is expanding? You see, theoretically, I must tell you, theoretically, I will just discuss later on, but I'm just giving now. It was actually done theoretically first and then confirmed experimentally 6-7 years after. But I'm now giving you the experimental proof of the expansion of the universe. So here, as you can see, these are the galaxies. These are the galaxies, and these are the distances of the galaxies from the Earth. Okay. Now, scientists actually fix their attention on some spectral lines. When the light comes from distant galaxies through the atmosphere, their own atmosphere as well as the atmosphere which are intervening between the observer on the Earth and those galaxies which are being observed, then what happens? The spectral lines actually get shifted towards the red. As you can see, this is shifting, this is shifting, this is also shifting. These are the H and K lines of calcium. The dark lines, as you can see here, are actually absorption lines. Always in a spectra, the dark lines are the absorption lines, the white lines are the emission lines. So these lines, the dark lines, are actually the lines which are observed from the distant galaxies. But for comparison, actually the white lines are also superimposed on them so that you can compare. As you can see, as you look at the spectra lines coming from distant and distant galaxies, as you can see, the distance is increasing. This is the distance first, this is the next, this is next, this is next, this is next. The distance is increasing. Correspondingly, you can see the shifting is also increasing. The shifting of the H and K lines of calcium. So this is the shift. Here this is the shift. So from this observation, and red shift means what? You know from Doppler effect, which was given to us in 1840 by Doppler, that if the source is moving away from us, then the spectral line which is we are observing from that source, which is emitting the light, if that is moving away from us, then we will get the red shift. If it is moving towards us, we will get the blue shift. Now, since these are all red shifts towards the larger wavelength side, so that means these galaxies are actually moving away from us. And with what speed? That also you can calculate from the Doppler's formula with what velocity they are. And it was found out they are actually receding from us, and it was found out that the velocity with which they are receding from us, in fact, is increasing. Larger this distance, greater is the rate shift. Therefore, larger is the velocity of recession. So now we come to the conclusion that the distant galaxies are actually moving away from us with greater and greater velocities. That is why the rate shifts are also becoming greater and greater. Right? Any question on this? Okay. So if you don't have question, okay. So that's it. So we have more or less experimental evidence, which is very crucial to say that there is a universe. In fact, I must tell you that by 1930, not many people actually knew that there are objects beyond our solar system, beyond our galaxy even. But these experiments actually told us for the first time that there are many galaxies, and all these galaxies are actually receding away from us with higher and higher velocities farther they are. Now, what is that velocity? That was not determined till about 2000.
Hello,
Hello?
hello, sir.
Yes?
Sorry for interruption, sir. I have a question.
Okay.
Sir, actually, is it experimentally observed that the galaxy are moving with greater velocity and
I showed you the experimental Doppler shift. That is the experiment.
uh, so that is the like update one, or like Doppler we already read from the beginning, but what is the update on it, sir?
This is the first experiment we showed. What do you mean by update?
Like
What do you
any
mean?
latest experiment is going on about this?
Many are going on, but this is the first experiment which told us that all these galaxies are receding away from us. This is an experimental verification of the expansion of the universe. Okay?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, what was I saying? Anyway, so yes, not many people actually knew that there are galaxies outside our galaxy. Even the existence of our galaxy beyond solar system was also not very clear. But theoretical, as I said, just after when I discuss the theory part of it, I will tell you how Friedman actually arrived at this result of expansion of the universe. But for the time being, I have given you this experimental observation that there are galaxies far, far away from us, so many light years from us, and they are also receding from us with a velocity which is proportional to the distance of those galaxies from us. Okay, fine. So this is also known as Hubble's law, that greater is the distance of the galaxy, greater is its velocity of recession. Okay, now time for some photographs. So these are the various types of galaxies. So this is this one is actually the spiral galaxy. Our own galaxy, which is the Milky Way, is a spiral galaxy. But there are various types. So there are spherical galaxies. Then, as you can see, this is a barred spiral galaxy. Then this is a irregular galaxy. There is no regular shape of it. Now, this is one elliptical galaxy because it has an elliptical shape, as you can see. And so, therefore, these are all different types of galaxies. Now, these galaxies are actually, you see, just as we have nerves inside our body, which are carrying various kind of information from the brain to the limbs and from the limbs to the brain. Similarly, these galaxies also seem to be connected to each other by very fine threads. Threads means it's a chain of stars. But usually you don't see these. But when you see it through very powerful telescopes, you actually see these. As I told you, there are clusters of galaxies, there are superclusters of galaxies, and there are also connection threads between the superclusters and clusters, and there are large voids. So these are basically the voids, for example. So voids so voids means empty space, completely empty space. So these are the kind of structure, just as we more or less like the structure inside our body, where we have large number of millions and millions of nerves, which are actually making us sustain our life. This picture is a very famous picture of a black hole. So on the 10th of April 2019, you know, all the newspapers of the world, magazines of the world carried this picture. Because this is for the first time that we have been able to photograph a black hole. Why I am saying this, I will explain later on when I discuss about general theory of relativity. So this is a very famous picture. If you have not seen it, all of you should have it in your mobiles. So this was actually taken by a synchronization of large number of radio telescopes which are actually placed on the surface of the earth in various countries like Spain, Chile, South Antarctica, North Antarctica, etc., etc. They were all electronically combined. They were electrically combined. Why? Just to make the diameter of the aperture as large as it could be. Because you know, the telescope resolution goes like lambda over d. But you can't do anything to the lambda because whatever light is coming from black hole or any other star, that you cannot change. But you can change the diameter of the telescope with which you are viewing, and you have to make it as large as possible so that the resolution becomes very small and small and small, so that smaller distances can be resolved. Isn't it? So you have to make your D very large. So by synchronizing telescopes placed at various countries, you are effectively making D large. Even though they are not single telescopes, but you are collecting the telescopes in such a manner that as if they are operating as one telescope with a huge aperture diameter. So therefore, resolution is very, very small. Resolving power is very, very large. So this is the picture of a black hole, I just told you. And this is in fact in the center of one galaxy, which is known as M87 galaxy. our galaxy is Milky Way galaxy. We all, now we more or less are certain that every galaxy has a very, very massive black hole at its center, just as atom has a massive nucleus at its center, and there are light electrons revolving around the nucleus. Similarly, inside the galaxies, we have a massive, supermassive black hole whose mass is of the order of 10 to the power 9, 10 to the power 10 times the mass of the sun. And around it, there are stars which are revolving. And it is this black hole which actually keeps, through gravitational attraction, keeps all these stars moving around it. And we have a compact or a bound galaxy system. Okay? Okay, so I just wanted to give you this picture so that you can have it. Now, this picture is about our galaxy, Milky Way. As you can see, these trajectories are actually not trajectories of the planets. They are trajectories of the stars. The red, the blue one, the yellow one, the green one, they are actually trajectories of the stars, just like the trajectories of the planets around the sun. So there must be something in the center around which they are actually, so it must be somewhere here, let us say. And so that is very indicative of the fact, and this result came after 8 years of observation from 1990, 16 years of observation, 1992 to 2000, so 2008. So after that, they could find out that yes, there must be something which is actually in the center of it, and this is our galaxy. So the scientists were very fortunate to see that there are actually indeed stars which are going around this central galaxy, which is holding our galaxy together, and these trajectories were actually mapped after 16 years of observation. And therefore, the Nobel Prize in Physics this year has gone to these two scientists. Okay, so this is, and this galaxy is our own galaxy, that's Milky Way, and the black hole at the center is known as Sagittarius A star. So I'm just showing you so that you can read more about it. Okay. Now this is a picture of the entire visible universe. As you can see, I have three pictures here. One is by the COBE, Cosmic Background Explorer satellite. So as you can see, that was not very fine. Now the precision or the resolution is increasing. By the WMAP, Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe in 2003, you can see that the resolution is much better. And in the Planck satellite, which was sent by the European Space Agency in 2013, the picture is still much better. You can more or less see that the visible universe is completely resolved, as much resolved as possible. That's the best picture we have the visible universe today. That's the Planck satellite picture. And this is also the same story. So by COBE in 1992, then WMAP in 2003, and then Planck in 2013. So these are all space-borne satellites which take pictures of the entire universe. And as you can see, they are nearly uniform. I told you that we are working, theory is working on the basis of homogeneity and isotropy. So you can see that there are small variations, but the variations actually, even though they look so distinct to our eyes, actually the variation is only of the order of 10 to the power -5, 10 to the power -6. So the cosmological principle nearly holds good. We don't have much to question it. So this is also another picture of the entire visible universe, so which is more or less homogeneous and isotropic. Okay, there are small variations, but those variations are of the order of 10 to the power -5. What are the variations? Variations are actually in terms of temperature, let us say. So if it is homogeneous and isotropic, the temperature of the entire universe should be something. So whatever number I gave you, 2.725 degree Kelvin. So it is not really that. There are small temperature fluctuations, and that temperature fluctuation is only of the order of 10 to the minus 5 or 10 to the minus 6. Very small fluctuations. Okay. Now, this is also another isotropic picture. Hello. Now, the question is, how did we actually learn about the temperature of the present temperature of the universe? What do we mean by that? We say that there is a background radiation which is pervading the entire, even though on the surface of the earth the temperature is around 30 degree or 40 degree or something, we feel hot, we feel cold, etc., etc. But as a whole, the average temperature of the universe is around 2.725 degree Kelvin. How did you come to know about it? Because when you very what should I say, very sensitive electronic circuits which were placed in the various labs, they always got a kind of signal. They were considering that to be a noise to start with, but that turned out to be a really very extremely good signal. And that signal doesn't change with time, doesn't change with direction, doesn't change from place to place, which is basically a conformation of homogeneity and isotropy. And that signal is a black body radiation kind of signal, as you can see. Just a minute, sir. So, it's a black body radiation spectrum, as you can see. Beautiful black body radiation spectrum. And we know that if we have a black body radiation spectrum, so therefore our universe is a black body, an ideal black body. Irrespective of small fluctuations here we find on the surface of the earth or near the sun or near all stars, actually the universe as a whole is a perfect black body. And this is the black body radiation spectrum. Now if we want to calculate and we see that at what wavelength actually it peaks. This is the wavelength at which it peaks. So that's around or frequency. So it's a plotted account. So this is the frequency. So you know the frequency at which it has maximum. So calculate the wavelength. And we know the Wien's displacement law for the black body radiation spectrum. So lambda maximum into temperature is of the order of, what is the value? Some 2.8 or something, or 2.9 into 10 to the minus 3 meter Kelvin. So since that value is constant, lambda maximum is known, I can always compute the temperature. And the temperature comes up to be 2.725 degree Kelvin. Okay, so that is how the temperature of the universe is determined from this black body radiation spectrum. And this is an experimental curve. So you can see the cross signs are actually the Kobe data. The red line is the Kobe data, and the blue one is the black body spectrum. So it's a beautiful black body. So our universe is a black body, just like sun is also a black body. Okay, so much for the physical and chemical characteristic of the universe. Now we will go over to the theory. So as I told you, the theory means we have to understand gravitation, because it is the gravitation alone which is playing the total role in building the large scale structure of the universe. The planets, the solar system, the galaxies, the clusters, etc., everything is built by just one fundamental interaction, that is gravitational interaction. So we have to understand, first find out a theory for which theory of gravitation shall we take. Okay. So the Newton's theory is not the right theory. That is what we read, that the force between two mass points is G into m1 m2 divided by r square. That's good. It's not that it is wrong, because that is the theory which actually explained the Kepler's laws. So it's good, but that is not good enough. Just a minute.
Hello, sir. I have a question.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Which explain confirms that there is a boundary in the universe. You showed 3 pictures are taken from Kobe.
There is no boundary. There is a horizon. There is no boundary in the universe. There is only a horizon. Horizon means the distance up to which I can see. That's not the boundary. For example, when you say Digbalaya, जो जगह मैं देखूं, तब कौन से boundary? That's not the boundary of the earth. Boundary and
Then
horizon are very different.
why the picture have a specific shape, that is elliptical shape?
No, that is how we see it. When we see it from a distance, obviously, for example, why do you see the rainbow of the shape that you get? Why do you see that rainbow like this? Why it is bow shaped?
I don't know.
You don't know. Anyway, so that is how, in fact, if you look at it from surface of the earth, that is how it would look like. It would be looking obviously elliptical. How would you look like? You can't get a spherical thing. It has to be a planar and it would look elliptical. Anyway, that part we can discuss. Just like you see the rainbow looking like a bow. Why is it a bow? Because these are the points which are at a similar angle from us. So anyway, so I will come to it. Maybe we can discuss it after I finish. Okay, so now we have to have a theory for these kind of characteristics of the universe. We have discussed the characteristics of the universe. It is cold, it is big, it has only hydrogen, helium, it is expanding, etc., etc. Now at least let me explain why or how we understand its expansion. Okay, but to do that, as I said, we must have some theory for the gravitation. Now the theory for the gravitation, a relativistic theory for the gravitation, was given by Einstein in 1915, which was published in 1916. And this is the equation. Some people consider it as the most beautiful equation of physics. Why? Because on the left hand side, we have this G mu nu. What is G mu nu? G mu nu is a tensor, obviously, and it's a metric tensor. And I can only tell you right now that metric tensor gives us all information about the characteristic of this space-time. This four-dimensional space-time, which Einstein introduced into physics in 1905 through his special theory relativity, also can curve. It can curve, it can stay flat, and when it curves, it can curve in a positive fashion. It can also curve in a negative fashion. Curvature can be negative, curvature can be positive, curvature can be zero. So therefore, everything, what it is actually controlled by this tensor G mu nu. It is called metric tensor. It speaks about the characteristics of this space-time. And this R mu nu, etc., these ones, curvature scalar, then Riemann tensor, these are all derived from G mu nu. I will not go into it. So the left-hand side of the equation basically is a characteristic of this space-time. Now on the right-hand side, apart from the constants, this 8, pi, g is the Newton's gravitational constant, c is the velocity of light in vacuum. So they are all constants. But this T mu nu is actually the energy momentum tensor, which is completely governed by the material content of the universe. Whatever is present inside the universe, they will give me the T mu nu. So therefore, this equation basically tells us that it is matter which tells the space-time how to curve, and it is space-time which tells matter how to move. That is how it was put by some people. So therefore, this is purely this is a classical equation. As you can see, there is no Planck constant, and this is a relativistic equation because Einstein actually introduced the relativity theory into physics. And he also introduced the four-dimensional space-time concept into physics. So he has now generalized it to give a theory of relativistic theory of gravitation. Now this is the theory which will actually be the cornerstone of understanding the universe in terms of gravitation. So after he wrote down the theory in 1916, he straight away applied it to universe. But even Einstein, that time harbored an impression in his mind that our universe is a static universe, because this expansion of the universe was not known. Because I am talking about 1916. The experimental curve that I told you was actually obtained in 1929. So that was not there. So he wanted to make the universe static. But his theory was giving the universe to be expanding, dynamic. but he did not garner enough courage to do that. So therefore, he introduced a constant, which is now known as cosmological constant. I will not go into it. He made the universe static and published it. But there, the story did not end. So then, what happened in 1922? Because of this homogeneity and the isotropic principle, the cosmological principle, people actually wrote down the metric, the G mu that I was talking about. G mu can be obtained from this line element, this ds square. If you have done special theory relativity, you know what is ds square. So similarly, you can write it. So ds square is c square dt square minus something something. So this whole thing is actually the space part with only a coefficient which is time dependent, and this is the time part. So from this, actually, you can find out what are the elements of G mu nu matrix, because G mu nu is a 4 by 4 matrix. Mu can take a value from 1, 2, 3, 4. Nu can also take 4 values, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 16 elements, and each element can be obtained from this. Once you have G mu nu, you can calculate your R mu nu, your R, etc., etc. Put something on the right hand side for the matter, and then you would arrive at what is known as Friedmann's equation. This is Friedmann's equation. And some people also call it as the most important equation, because it tells you, this R basically tells you what is the size of the universe, spatial size of the universe. So therefore, how the spatial size of the universe is changing, because if it is not changing, then it's a static universe. If it is changing with time, then it's an expanding or contracting universe. So therefore, the information about the change with respect to time is given by this equation, because we have a R dot there. R dot means rate of variation of R with respect to time, and R, as I told you, is basically related to the size of the universe. So if R dot is non-zero, that means the size of the universe is changing with time. So therefore, this equation is in fact, one has put the cosmological constant equal to 0 that I was talking about. So forget about it. So this is, you can also put this equal to 0, because experiments now tell us that this k is equal to 0. So you have a simple equation. R dot over R whole square is equal to 8 pi g divided by 3, which is a constant, into rho. Rho is nothing but matter and energy density filling the universe. That's it. So once this equation was given by Alexander Friedmann in 1922, he started sort of meddling with this equation to see how R is going or progressing with time. What is the dependence of R on T? That is what he questioned next. And that's what I'm going to discuss now. So you take, so I have written one G mu nu, for example. So one G mu nu I have written here. Just a minute. Just 1 minute. Yeah, this is just one value of this is one value of G mu nu from which you can actually calculate your R mu nu, etc. So, and this is similarly one value of T mu nu, where one particular simplifying assumption has been taken that the matter filling the universe is a perfect fluid. It has only just 1 moment. Okay, so So this is what we call a perfect fluid. So, and then you just plug it in. I have given you the equation that r dot r whole square is equal to some constant into rho. Fine. Now you make some assumption that let us say the universe is only filled with radiation. Now if the universe is filled with radiation only, then you would have your rho going like T to the power 4. T to the power 4 because that is Stephen's law. If the temperature of the universe is T, then rho will go like T to the power 4. So now we know that the universe is expanding means expansion causes cooling. So let us say that T and R, the size of the universe, are inversely proportional to each other. So T to the power 4 will go like 1 over R to the power 4. So everything is in terms of R. So you put it on the right hand side as 1 over R to the power 4. Then R dot R will be a constant. So R will go like T to the power half. So once RT goes like T to the power half, that means when T increases, R will also increase. So it's an expansion. Similarly, supposing the universe is matter dominated. Matter means the density of matter will be proportional, inversely proportional to the volume, and therefore it will be proportional to 1 over R cube. Now, then put it in the equation R dot over R whole square is equal to 1 over R cube, some constant into 1 over R cube. So solve it. It's a plus 2 differential equation which you can solve, and then RT will go like T to the power 2 by 3. So when T increases, R also increases. So once again, it's an expansion. So you can actually, from Einstein's field equation, if you apply homogeneity and isotropy principle as applied by Alexander Friedman, you would actually get his equation, and from his equation you would get, if you take universe to be radiation dominated, you will get expansion. If you take the universe to be matter dominated, you will also get expansion. Now, however, if you take rho to be a constant, then you can see that you will get an exponential expansion. These are all power law expansion. T to the power 1 by 2, T to the power 2 by 3. These are power law expansion. But if you take rho to be a constant one, then you will get exponential expansion. Okay, what is the difference? Difference is if you calculate the acceleration R double dot, then you can see for the matter case, for the radiation case, they are decelerated expansion because they are all negative. R double dot is negative. But if it's an exponential expansion, R double dot is positive. So it's an accelerated expansion. We always thought that the universe is actually decelerated, is expanding, but in a decelerated fashion. But from 1998, there are some experimental observations which actually tell us that there is perhaps accelerated expansion from nearly the half of the life of the universe. Because the life of the universe is, as I told you in the beginning, something like 13.87 billion years. So let's say from 4-5 billion years, the expansion of the universe seems to be, some people claim to be accelerated expansion. Why it is accelerated, what causes it, we still don't know very well. Okay. So, okay, this I have done. So once you have this accelerated expansion or decelerated expansion, whatever it is, we saw that actually Alexander Friedman equation tells us that universe is expanding. So therefore it agrees with the redshift curve that I had shown you earlier. So fine. Now the question arises, what is it? Where does the universe get energy to expand? Because for something to expand, you must have energy provided to it. Nothing can expand on its own. You have to provide energy. Now the question is, where does the universe get its energy to expand? Then Gamow came in. Gamow is actually a PhD student of Alexander Friedman. So he came along in middle of last century and developed what is known as a Big Bang model of the creation of the universe. George Gamow, the same Gamow who gave us liquid drop model, the same Gamow who gave us the theory for alpha decay. He also gave us the theory for creation of the universe. He never got a Nobel Prize, unfortunately. But anyway, but he's a great name in physics. So he said that there was a big bang, huge explosion in the beginning, from which actually the universe got its energy to expand. Because explosion always provides energy. ଯେମିତି ବାଣ ଫୁଟିଲେ ସବୁ ଗୁଡାକ ଛିନଛତ୍ର ହେଇଯାଏ ବରଡା ପଥର ସବୁ କି ଯାହା ତାର constituent ଥାଏ. Similarly, because of this big bang, huge explosion, actually the universe is expanding. And once it expands, it cools. So now so they calculated in fact everything, what are the various stages of expansion. So here actually I'll give you very briefly what are the stages of expansion. So when the universe was created through a big bang, that is the age of that's the time when the elementary particles, most elementary particles were present, photon was present, everything was present, but because of the huge energy, even the material particles were also moving with extreme relativistic speed. So you can take everything as radiation. So that was radiation dominated part of the universe. And
Excuse
so
me,
that,
sir.
just a minute, let me complete. So,
Okay, sir.
so therefore, that is the radiation dominated part of the universe, and that is also in a sense particle physics part of the universe. Now, once the universe expanded, so it started cooling. Expansion causes cooling, that is the Newton's law, which we read in +2. So then these quarks, etc., they combined to form neutrons, protons. Neutrons, protons, as I said, combined gradually with the opposite charged particles like electrons to form atoms. So and neutrons, protons also before that combined to give some other nuclei. Before the atoms were formed, some low mass nuclei were also formed, like hydrogen itself is the nucleus is proton, then helium nucleus was also formed, lithium nucleus was also formed in the early part of the universe. So that is the period of nucleosynthesis. That took roughly 3 minutes. There is a beautiful book by Nobel laureate Steven Weinberg, whose title is First 3 Minutes. I have actually translated that to Odia, but because I thought maybe some people will be interested to read in Odia, but unfortunately that's still lying with the publisher for last 3 years and he has not published yet. Once it comes, I will put it in the library of our department, because all my books are actually in the library. So, so that is the part of nuclear physics. Early part of the universe, also some nuclear physics was done, because the low mass nuclei like hydrogen, helium and lithium, they were produced in the early part of the universe. The high mass nuclei like carbon, oxygen, sodium, iron, uranium, they were actually formed inside the stomach of the stars. So they were cooked inside the stars. Okay, so so protons are formed, as you can see here, and then nuclear fusion begins. This is a fusion process which actually is responsible for this nuclear synthesis. So this is particle physics era. Then we have nuclear physics. And once these protons or nuclei are formed, they will combine with electrons. So nuclear fusion ends. And then we have actually the age of ions or atoms are formed in this period. So once the atoms are formed, everything becomes neutral, because atoms are actually chargeless, whereas protons are charged, electrons are charged. So they are always interacting intensely with photons which are present all around. So because of this interaction, the entire universe was opaque. It's opaque, but if you leave it for 5-10 minutes, then the dust will settle down and the water will become transparent. Exactly similar thing happened in case of the universe. So first all these charged particles were interacting with the photons incessantly, always, because they were charged particles. They were moving with very high speed, so they were interacting. But once the atoms were formed, atoms are electrically neutral. They cannot interact with photons as much as the charged particles can. So therefore, the universe actually became more or less transparent. Now, once the atoms were formed, then gravitation basically took over. So first it was particle physics era, then nuclear physics era, then atomic physics era, and then gravitation took over. And as you can see, the stars were formed, the planets were formed, the galaxies were formed, and the present large-scale structure that we observe is actually formed only after 300,000 years. So you just imagine 300,000 means 3 lakh years. So the age of the universe is 13.8 billion years. But all these things happened in the first 300,000 years, so quickly. Just like a child actually when develops inside the womb of the mother, actually the development is very quick within first 2-3 weeks, and then it slows down. So in fact, it is true of all creations. So when something is created, the first few moments or years or something, depending on the time scale, are very important. And there is a first development, and then it slows down, stabilizes, and it becomes cooler and cooler. So that is more or less the evolution of the universe based on the Big Bang model of George Gamow. Many things were so after this. So since the photons stopped interacting with the neutral atoms, so they basically, when the universe expanded, the photons basically flowed down to the present time without much of interaction. So therefore, their temperature actually went on decreasing because the size of the universe was increasing. So wavelength of the radiation was also increasing. So that means the frequency was coming down. So energy was coming down. So corresponding temperature was coming down. So the cosmic microwave background radiation that we observe today, which has a temperature of 2.725 degree Kelvin, that is actually the temperature of this remnant radiation which is left behind after the neutral atoms were formed. Am I clear? So that's what we observe today. And then, as I said, the story is that from 1998, because of some supernova observation, a team has come up. They got Nobel Prize in 2011. So they have come up with the idea that, or experimental evidence, that the entire universe has only visible matter, which is roughly 4.5% or something. So visible matter in the universe is only 4.5%. And the invisible matter actually consists of matter as well as energy. So that is known as dark energy, dark matter. So dark energy is filling the universe something like 74%. Dark matter is 22%. So that is 96%, and some 4 roughly, and some 4% or 4.5% is actually the visible matter. Now, why? And some people say that the accelerated expansion of the universe, which they seem to have observed, which is also questioned today, is because of the presence of the dark energy and presence of the dark matter also to some extent, because dark matter is actually there, which is enveloping all the galaxies. The galaxy that is visible to us is not the actual size of the galaxy. There is a lot of, it's only 10% of the galaxy. Then 90% of the galaxy we don't see, which is constituted out of dark matter. So that is the basic picture they are actually projecting. And this is also being questioned. Even if it is not questioned, we still don't know what is actually the material of the dark energy. Is it just the cosmological constant that Einstein took it as a mistake in his lifetime, or it is something else? We also don't know what the dark matters are. They are not certainly electron, proton, muon, etc. So what are the candidates for dark matter? This is a actually area of intense research even today. Okay, so now we can have a word about the future of the universe. Now, what would happen to our universe? So here is a picture that whether it is a presently accelerated universe or decelerated universe, we don't know. But supposing our universe is a closed universe, supposing that K parameter which we had, if that is positive, then it's a closed universe. If that is 0, then it's a flat universe. If that is negative, then it's a open universe. That is how we describe it. Because in case of closed one, the curvature, space curvature is positive. In case of open one, space curvature is negative. In case of flat one, the space curvature is 0. So if it's a closed universe, then ultimately a time would come and the universe would again decrease in its size and go on to become another point. Just as it has started from a point, it will also end in a point, and that point is called a big crunch. Instead of a big bang, it is called a big crunch. Now, if it is an open universe, it will go on expanding, and therefore everything will sort of move away from each other. So the entire universe will rip apart. And if it is a flat universe, then it would more or less stay where it is, this size. It will just grow indefinitely, but neither there will be a big crunch, nor will there be a big rip. Now, supposing this is accelerated universe, as is being projected through certain experimental findings, then there will be a exploding rip, because everything would come tear apart in such a wide fashion or in a dramatic fashion that there will be nothing left really. So one doesn't know which way actually the universe is going right now, because we still don't have exact value for the K. We don't have exact knowledge about the accelerating universe. We don't have exact answer to the question as to if it is an accelerating universe, what actually causes this acceleration. Once these questions are settled, maybe we will be in a better position to talk about the future of the universe. Now, to end my talk, I would give you something from our Indian side. You see, Rig Veda, whenever it was written, we say that it was written 5,000 years before Christ, but supposing it was written, most of the Western people say that it was written around 1500 before Christ. So, okay, whatever it is. But in the Rig Veda itself, in the Nasadya Sukta, this is an English translation. Nasadya means no asat. Asat means no, it's not a false thing. So, not untruth or not a lie. So, it's a truth, therefore. To them, it is a truth. So, they actually ask the question about the creation of the universe. Way back, just imagine, way back, 1500 BC, let us say, they asked the question, how did this universe begin? As you can see, they are all thinking, they are all musing in their own minds. So, this is their intuition. There was not non-existence. There was no realm of air, no sky beyond it. What covered in and where? What gave shelter? Was water there? Unfathomless water? They were asking questions. Because getting an answer to a question always starts with asking questions. If you don't ask questions, you never get an answer. So it is more important actually to ask questions than to obtain answers to them. Then they write, death was not then, nor was there aught immortal, no sign was there, the days and nights divider, just as we are having days and nights different from each other. Was there night and day in those days when the universe was created? That one thing deathless, breathed by its own nature, apart from it was nothing whatsoever. So they are thinking of something which actually created the universe. Darkness there was, at first concealed in darkness, and all the indiscriminated chaos, all that existed then was void and formless. So this is a very beautiful idea that there was actually nothing. It was void, and there was no form. Very good, because that is what, when you have only energy, obviously it has no form. Energy doesn't have a form. Only when it materializes to some objects which have mass, then only you get form. By the great power of warmth was the unit born. You see, this I must underline, the great power of warmth. What is a Big Bang? Big Bang is a big explosion. Explosion means what? You have huge energy, you have huge sound. They are associated with a Big Bang. So you see, they are writing here, great power of warmth. So that is as good as a bang, as good as a Big Bang, as good as a big explosion, isn't it? So intuitively, at least, they were close to it. Intuitively, they didn't have any mathematics, they did not observe anything, but intuitively they were close to it. And similarly, we always attach the sound of this Dambaru of Shiva as the primal sound of creation. So you see, when you talk of a huge explosion, what do you get? You get huge energy, you get huge sound, big sound. So therefore, in the Indian intuition, there was a question of somehow they also thought that a large amount of energy, huge amount of energy, and a sound were actually associated with the creation of the universe. They were close, but nobody pursued it anyway. So we can't take much credit. We cannot take the credit away from the Westerners, but at least we can take solace in the fact, satisfaction in the fact that we at least intuitively were correct, but we could not pursue it. So we did not get the due that is the credit that is due to the Westerners. Okay, so and this picture in fact is now put in the CERN. CERN means in Geneva, as you know, the largest energy accelerator is put there. CERN is known as European Center for Nuclear Research. So the highest energy, this LHC, Large Hadron Collider, is operating there. That is the highest energy accelerator available in the world today, where Higgs particle was discovered. The W1Z particles, I don't know whether you know about it or not, they were also discovered. So many Nobel Prizes have actually gone to people who work there. Anyway, so it is there. So they recognize this. But somehow we miss the link. We are not actually following the, what should I say, the intellectual tradition of our past. We have lost it. So I think I have taken 1 hour and 15 minutes or so. So I must thank you for your attention. And now it is open for questions. You can ask any question you like.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So we know that universe is potentially infinite, right?
Potentially what?
Infinite.
What?
Infinite.
No, we don't know.
But we can assume, na?
No. Why should we assume? I don't know. Why are you? Okay, let us assume. So what is your question?
So my question is that can we say that there is a chance of existence of another universe, and we can say that the energy is coming from that universe to our universe, or the energy is exchanging between the universes?
Oh, yes. Okay, that's a good question. There are many models. You see, there are many models. You see, everything has to be done mathematically. Even if we assume, just as I told you, Indians dreamt of it, but they did not do any mathematics. They had no experimental laboratory. They had no experimental techniques developed. So therefore, just thinking and making wild guess doesn't mean much. But anyway, I can tell you that yes, there are already theories developed, which is known as multiverse theories, that our universe is just one amongst many which are possible. But you see, there is no experimental evidence for such multiverse theories. There is no experimental evidence as yet for string theory, for example. So we don't know. I cannot answer your question because we don't know. But those kind of theories are actually pursued. For example, Professor Penrose, Roger Penrose, who got this year's Nobel Prize, he is a strong believer of the thing that there was no Big Bang. In fact, the energy actually flew from the previous universe to this universe, and it is a cyclic universe. Just like our Shastrakaras, our rishis and munis used to think that this universe is cyclic universe. Chakravart parivartate sukhanicha dukhanicha. So everywhere we actually apply this cyclic thing, Indian philosophy. But they are different because they are saying it with substance. We are only saying it in words. So you have to actually get substantial experimental evidence to say that yes, our universe is just one amongst many, and the multiverse is actually the reality. So we can't say that right now. Yes. Any other question?
So,
Yes, sir.
sir, expansion of universe is continuous.
Yes. Universe is expanding. That's true. accelerated expansion or accelerated expansion, whatever it, but the universe is continuing in its expansion. Yes,
Sir, what is the case of universe before time is equal to 0?
nothing. In this model, the model that I described to you is actually known as standard model of cosmology. So here you have to assume that the universe started from Big Bang. Okay, it is just like telling that supposing we believe in rebirth and then ask the question, who was I or who were you before your birth? You can't answer.
What is the cause of Big Bang for the creation of universe?
Sorry, what is?
What is the Big Bang for the creation of universe?
No, no, say it clearly, please. I'm not able to hear it clearly.
Sir, what is the cause of Big Bang for the creation of the universe?
No, that's what I'm saying. So we don't know cause of. If you ask the question, why should point be there in geometry? Something you, I mean, how we define? We say that all mathematicians define the point as a zero-dimensional object which exists. Then you can always question, zero-dimensional object is exists. Why should I believe? Don't believe in it. Then don't do geometry. That's what I'm saying. That is the limitation of human mind. So in this model, you start assuming that the universe was created from a Big Bang. And if you do that, if you do take that as the correct, hello, who is disturbing? So if you take that as the correct thing, then you can explain how it is evolving, what is happening, how the large scale structure has come into existence, and then match them with experiments. Because there are so many experimental avenues with which you can match, and so they are matching. So therefore, we believe that there is, if not 100% truth in the Big Bang model, there is certainly 90% truth in the Big Bang model, because they have calculated the temperature of the cosmic microwave background temperature to be around 3 degree Kelvin. It is found to be around 3 degree Kelvin. They have calculated that the nuclei of hydrogen, helium, lithium will be formed in this amount at the early stage of the universe. That is exactly what is found. So therefore, there are so many predictions of the theory which are matching with experimental observation. Therefore, we believe that this is correct. Now, your question is a valid question, that what existed before. We don't know what existed before. But there are models, but models don't have experimental support. As I said, multiverse is another one model. Then people can say that
Excuse me, sir.
just a minute, just as Roger Penrose, just a minute, just as Roger Penrose is saying that the energy
Excuse
for
me,
the Big
sir.
Bang was actually obtained from the earlier universe. So we have to accumulate experimental support for these kind of conjectures. Yes. For the time being, standard model is already strong because it is, first of all, Einstein's general theory relativity is succeeding in all experimental verification. That's number one. Number two, this Big Bang model is also having a lot of experimental support. So for this time being, let us stay within that model and try to explore refinements. Try to make it better and better instead of questioning the very axiom on which it stands. But I mean, those are not forbidden. It is always welcome. But then there should be experimental support for it. There should be good, sound mathematical theory for it. I will give you one example. For example, this Jogesh Pati and Professor Abdul Salam, they came up in 1972 with a theory where the strong interaction, electromagnetic interaction, and weak interaction are all combined. They are all unified. That is known as grand unification theory. And they predicted if that is true model, then the proton will have a lifetime of 10 to the power 27 years. But experimentally it is found that the minimum lifetime of proton is 10 to the power 32 years. So even though their model is a good model, mathematically very sound, physics-wise very beautiful, very attractive, but nature doesn't work that way. So therefore that's not the real thing. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, on what basis we are treating the universe as a black body?
Because we saw the spectrum. If you take the radiation coming from the all parts of the universe and plot it, I just showed you that it's a beautiful blackbody spectrum.
Sir, please explain the how the universe is transparent. This concept. Hello, sir.
What is see? What is transparent? Light can pass through. What is opaque? Light cannot pass through. So as you can see,
Yes, sir.
light is passing through. So that way it is transparent.
Sir, does all galaxies have a black hole at the center?
Yes, that is our conjecture now. That is the
Uh,
conjecture now.
Sir, then what decides the shape of galaxies? Like the six types you showed.
No, that you can't say. It all depends on how they see. These are all chaotic distributions of stars. So, depending on the mass of the galaxies, or depending on the initial velocities associated with the dust particles which actually accumulated to form the stars, so they must be responsible for the size of this. Just as what is responsible for the size of the various sizes of the planets? They all came from the same dust which formed the sun, but they have different sizes. So similarly, because these are actually all obtained from disturbances. So because these dust particles, material particles, then photons, so they are all floating around. So just because of some peculiar reason, density in some place actually increases. So sometimes the density will increase and then fritter away. So you will not get any bigger mass formation. But sometimes they will actually aggregate more and more and more and more, and they will form stars. So those are actually formed from chaotic movement of the material particles. You can't predict right from the beginning. You have to actually put a simulation, computer simulation on and find out how they are formed. There is no specific theory for it.
Okay, sir. Sir, if universe is expanding, why aren't we getting farther from sun? Or we already do that and we don't know it yet?
No. You see, universe is expanding. Then you can say that why I'm not getting farther from my home. No. You see, it's a good question in the sense that you see, in a human body, what is the unit of a living organism? It's a cell. Isn't
Yes,
it?
sir.
Similarly, what if you have, let us say, a bit of sugar cube, then what is the unit there? It's an atom or a molecule. Okay. Similarly, in the case of universe, it's so big that the unit of it is a galaxy, not a solar system. Solar system is too small to do anything. So universe is expanding doesn't mean that we are all drifting away from each other, that your home is drifting away from my home. This is such a small scale that this kind of separation will not be visible at all. It's not distinguishable. So solar system is way too small a dimension to be affected by the expansion of the universe. And more or less, moreover, the solar system also is a gravitationally bound system. So gravitationally bound systems will not be affected so much.
Sir, but gravitation is
Just a
everywhere
minute.
in universe.
Just a minute. The galaxy size also doesn't increase. Do you understand? Because only the distance between the galaxies are increasing. The space between the galaxies are increasing. So galaxies themselves are not increasing in size. So forget about the solar system or our planet Earth or our district or our village. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Any other question?
Sir, why scientists take meteorology dominant and radiation dominant? Why they take this concept like this?
Because
What
they
they
want
want to
they want to
what they
explore
want to
how the RT is varying with time. Does it really give me an expanding universe or not? Because after all, as I told you, in the first few minutes or seconds of the creation of the universe, if Big Bang model is the correct model, then everything is very relativistic. Okay, even electrons, quarks, whatever material particles, if they are there, they are also moving with extremely high energy. So you know the Einstein's equation is E square is equal to P square C square plus M0 square C4. So P is very, very large, then M0, the rest mass doesn't matter. So you get E square is equal to P square C square. So E is equal to PC, and that's the equation for photon. So therefore everything is relativistic. So when everything is relativistic, then you would say that perhaps at that period, universe is radiation dominated. Even material particles can be taken as radiation. So that is why you simplify your model and see how the universe is expanding, and you find that R is going like T to the power half. So therefore it is expanding. Now when it cools down, then you would say that perhaps my universe is now matter dominated. There is much less radiation around. So let me take matter domination and see. Forget about radiation altogether. This is just to simplify my mathematics. And then I would see that RT is going like T to the power 2 by 3. So even then it is also expanding. But in both cases, the expansion is decelerated expansion. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. I have a question. Sir, you told our universe composed of 96% of dark matter and only 4.5% of visible matter. Then how can we strongly say that our... Sorry?
Dark energy plus dark matter. Yes.
Dark energy, dark matter 96% and only visible matter is 4.5%. Then how can we strongly say that our universe expanding or not?
Pardon?
If there is only 4.5%, if there is only 4.5% of visible matter energy, then how can we strongly say that our universe is expanding when we don't have any idea for the dark matter?
No, we don't have idea. We don't have idea about the. We don't have idea about what a dark matter is, what a dark energy is. But we know that they are all there because energy is equivalent to mass. Energy, whatever energy I have, divided by c square is equivalent mass, and dark matter is after all matter. So I know what is the material content of the universe. So what is wrong there? I don't know the candidates, but how does it matter? That's another question. Do you follow my point? To know the expansion, I just have to solve the Friedmann equation. Am I clear or not? Did you get my point? In a class, for example, I am taking a virtual class. I know there are people, 30 people. I don't know who is there, how much they understand, whether they like it or not. There are different other questions, but I know there are people. Similarly, I know that there is matter energy together. That is the density of matter and energy of the universe. I know the total matter energy density, and that is good enough for me to calculate, because in that equation r dot over r square is equal to some constant into rho. So that rho I know. That rho is actually the density of matter and energy put together. I don't have to say that this is my matter, that is my energy. That I don't have to say. Am I clear? Hello? 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 Have I lost?
No, sir. Are
you able to hear me or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Yes, sir.
one question.
Theory,
Yes?
sir, Einstein theory karo sir, general theory of relativity assumption thila universe was static.
No. There was no assumption. There was no assumption. He got from his theory that the universe is expanding, but he did not have enough courage to have one expanding universe, because he thought that our universe is probably a static universe. So he put one constant in his equation to make it a static universe. Okay, but there is no assumption of that kind.
Yes.
In fact, he regretted very much in 1930 when actually Friedman's equations predictions were verified experimentally by Hubble. Then he regretted saying that that was the greatest blunder of my life. But anyway, when the accelerated expansion thing came in 1998, then people said maybe Einstein was correct because we probably need a cosmological constant in the Einstein's field equation to describe or to understand accelerated expansion of the universe.
Sir, till now not decided.
Sorry?
Sir, till now not decided the space curve is flat or open or closed or flat. Till now not decided.
Not mostly decided. Most of the experiments which are undertaken by Kobe and WMAP and Planck seem to tell us that k is nearly zero, but still there is an open question, slightly. But mostly decided. We will take the universe to be flat. If you take universe to be flat, do a calculation, it is still publishable in scientific journals.
Sir, sir, good evening.
Good evening. कौन भला अच्छा?
Sir, sir. Sir, ଆମେ ତ ଜାଣିଲେ ଯେ we do not know the what are the candidates of dark matter, but can we say that dark matter can convert into normal ordinary matters in future?
No. If we don't know the candidate, how can we say that? We have some possible candidates like neutrinos, etc., or maybe black holes, but we still don't know what they are. There are many models. People are coming up with various conjectures, but if we don't know what they are, how can we say that they can get modified to ordinary matter? Am I clear?
Actually,
am I clear?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, actually in Hubble law, actually I don't understand this concept in Hubble law. What is Hubble law?
Yes, sir.
Hubble law means basically, what do you mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sorry? Hubble law basically tells. Sorry?
Velocity proportional to distance also.
Yes, sir.
Bus, that is Hubble law. So what is confusion?
Again, don't listen.
Sorry?
Sir, please say again.
Velocity of galaxies which are distant from us have a recessional velocity, isn't it? That is what we are talking about. All galaxies are actually receding from us. They are going away from us. Why did we say that? Because they are all, the light coming from them are actually, all of them are showing us red shift. If there's a red shift, that means the galaxies are moving away from us. And then from that formula, you can find out with what velocity they are moving away. So it was very clear that the greater is the distance of the galaxy from us, greater is the recessional velocity associated with them. So
yes, sir. Sir,
yes, plot the recessionality against the distance, you will get a straight line.
Sir, the people believes the God, the religions people believe God and a scientist
So
believe nature. Both are same thing.
I don't know. I'm not a religious person.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
You ask some pandits. You have to go to yes, or you have to meditate. Okay, any other question from our students? Have they all left?
Sir, good evening.
Yes.
Sir, recently it
Because
was in
these
news
people are
that
actually not our students, they were our students. Yes, yes. Yes, please.
sir, recently it was in news that OSIRIS-REx was sent by NASA to Bennu asteroid just to collect sample from it and come back to Earth again by putting it in a box. Sir, my question here is that as the whole program or system is attached to the OSIRIS-REx satellite, but how can that box be reached to Earth rather than that of satellite?
No, I'm not really understanding what is the question. Can you say
Sir,
it once
it
again?
was in news. Yes, sir. Sir, in 2016, NASA has sent a satellite to asteroid Bennu just to
Yes,
collect
yes.
sample from it, and
Oh, very good. Okay, very good. Okay.
so that they can check the composition of Bennu, whether it is coincide with Earth or any other satellite or any other planet. And sir, my question here
No,
is
no,
that
they want to see, actually, they want to see what are the constituents of asteroids. Because
yes, sir.
asteroids are actually remnants of that same dust and cloud which formed the sun and the planets. So, asteroids are
Yes, sir.
actually very tiny planets basically moving around sometimes around the planet, sometimes around the sun. Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, my question is that as when we send a satellite the whole program or energy is associated with that satellite. But here OCS-REX function is its function is to give the sample collected to a box, and that box will reach the Earth rather than that OCS-REX satellite. Sir, how that box can be reached to Earth?
Oh, that will be brought back to Earth by another spacecraft, because now they have all
No,
developed
sir.
all techniques. They have now developed all techniques so that they leave it on the asteroid. That satellite will probably collect it. I'm not very sure, but I think that is not a big problem. So they will put it in some space station, or maybe on some, even on Mars. They are always going to Mars. So they will put it somewhere from which they can collect. Even China has now developed landing on the Mars. So
Sir, I
even
have
this
a
this
doubt.
Mars, just a minute. Even this Mars landing, you see, there is a rover which is going round on the
Yes,
surface
sir.
of Mars by the United States. Isn't it? 2-3 days back, there is also another rover which is going to. The lander has already landed, Chinese lander. The rover will come out after a few days, and they will also collect something. Now they will put their things in the on the surface of the Mars. Some things, or they will send it to. It depends on which way they have planned. So they can always collect from the surface of the Mars, because now people are able to land there. I mean, people means the instruments are able to land there. Just as United States is also is flying. In fact, helicopters there now. So that's the first helicopter flight in another planet. So they have developed techniques. They can bring it back. I don't know. You have to read it in the magazines, but that's not a big deal now. They can
Okay,
collect.
sir.
If you can collect samples from the asteroids, collecting them from some other space station or something else is not a big thing. You can always bring them back to Earth and study them.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mm.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
ମୋ
Yes.
question ହେଲା କି ମାନେ ୟୁନିଭର୍ସରେ ଅକ୍ସିଜେନ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ ଅଛି କିନ୍ତୁ ସ୍ମଲ୍ ଆମାଉଣ୍ଟ ବୋଲି ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛେ କିନ୍ତୁ ଏଠି ବ୍ରିଥିଂ କାହିଁ ଆମେ କରିପାରୁନି ୟୁନିଭର୍ସ
ୟୁନିଭର୍ସରେ ଅକ୍ସିଜେନ କମ୍ ଅଛି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା ତ ଆମେ ବ୍ରିଥିଂ କାହିଁ ସେଠି କରିପାରୁନି
ବେଶୀ
ତ ଏଠି ଆମେ ବ୍ରିଥିଂ କାହିଁ କରିପାରୁନି
ବ୍ରିଦିଂ ମାନେ ନିଶ୍ୱାସ ନେଇ ପାରୁନୁ କାହିଁକି?
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଆଉ ଅକ୍ସିଜେନ ତ କମ୍ ଅଛି, ଆଉ ନିଶ୍ୱାସ ନେବ କେମିତି? ଦେଖୁନ ଏ କରୋନାରେ କେମିତି ସବୁ ଲୋକମାନେ ହଇରାଣ ହେଇଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ବିକଜ ଅଫ୍ ଲ୍ୟାକ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଅକ୍ସିଜେନ। Because we need oxygen for our living. To stay alive, we need oxygen. Oxygen ଆମେ ନବୁ, ସେଇଟା ଫୁସଫୁସ ବାଟ ଦେଇକରି ସେଇଠୁ ଫୁସଫୁସରେ ଯେଉଁ रक्त आसिक पहुँच से रक्त से जो कौन कह जहाँ सब चैनल्स अच्छी तेणु से ऑक्सीजन टा एक्चुअली हिमोग्लोबिन को जगेबा शक्ति से हिमोग्लोबिन टा रक्त रे सेठु जाइंगे चारिआडे हमको शक्ति दबो सो इफ यू लैक ऑक्सीजन देन हाउ विल यू लिव सेतबे बयस हो गेले बहुत वर्ष लोक जेतेबेले बेले बेले बाचाळता टिके आसे से यार छोड़ कहती कौन कहते से निजे भी जान ना कि अन्य मैंने बुझी पारती तार मूल कारण हूँ द ऑक्सीजन सप्लाई इज लेस टू द ब्रेन ऑक्सीजन सप्लाई इज लेस माने फुसफुसटा ठीक भाव में काम कर तेणु सी ऑक्सीजन टाक नहीं जो ये माने आम रक्तर जो हिमोग्लोबिन अच्छी तादे मिसे से हिमोग्लोबिन गुड़ा से चारिआड को जीवे सीरा प्रसीरा तेणु ऑक्सीजन टा दरकार ना से आम कहूँ ऑक्सीजन एब्जॉर्प्शन ऑक्सीजन टा खाली नहीं गले बने दैट शुड बी एब्जॉर्ब so that it gets into the blood
the book managere pura mention hai jauche universe no breathing but a small amount of oxygen is present
के
again
कोठी यूनिवर्स
छोट पिला माने जेतले पतसन तो बुझेगारे टिके प्रॉब्लम होए जिंस
ना ना यूनिवर्स कथा तुम कहीं तांको छोट पिला मान तो यूनिवर्स कथा किछ कहबेनी से कहबे हमर एटिका आम गोटे पकेट भीतर अच्छे मुझे कहले एवरेज टेम्परेचर यूनिवर्स रोचे 2.725 डिग्री केल्विन कौन अर्थ एटमॉस्फेयर एवरेज टेम्परेचर से ना सेमते एतल आम को जुगुर मर जाते आम तो मोटे सृष्टि न था बुझ पाइले तेणु से जो होल यूनिवर्स रा ऑक्सीजन सिना होची एते कम किंतु आमर ऑक्सीजन तो एते कम न ना आमर पा 20% ऑफ एटमॉस्फेयर इज ऑक्सीजन 75% होची नाइट्रोजन तेणु यही ऑक्सीजन जो न था से तो प्रथमे व्हेन द एटमॉस्फेयर ऑफ द अर्थ वाज कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड रिच देयर वाज नो लाइफ ऑन अर्थ सरफेस ऑफ द अर्थ सो प्रथमे जो शैवाल सब सृष्टि हेले कोठी पानी भितर से माने धीरे धीरे ऑक्सीजन देले एटमॉस्फेयर इन कोर्स ऑफ मिलियंस ऑफ इयर्स एक्चुअली आवर एटमॉस्फेयर गॉट as much of oxygen as is required to sustain life on the surface of the earth तापर से जीवन धीरे धीरे पानी भितर स्थल भाग को आसला तेणु छोट पिला मैंने जब पचारे से यूनिवर्स कथा पचारे ना सी पचारे आम एटमॉस्फेयर ऑक्सीजन कथा मु जो परसेंटेज कथा कहली हाइड्रोजन हीलियम से हूँ यूनिवर्स बुझ पाइल तेणु छोट पिला पचारे असुविधा कौन आमर यही गछ गछ यदि ऑक्सीजन न दिया ये जो 20% ऑक्सीजन जो न था से यदि 0.06% जोटा मैं लिखिली सेति था अपन जीवन था कि जीवन न था
नो सर थैंक यू
वी आर वेरी लकी टेम्परेचर ठीक रही कहीं एटमॉस्फेयर गोटे अच्छे एटमॉस्फेयर जब 200 किलोमीटर पृथ्वी पृष्ठ न था ताले आम मोटे बंची पार ना एटमॉस्फेयर को 200 किलोमीटर रखा पृथ्वी मास भी ठीक हवा दरकार कहीं इट इज ग्रेविटेशनल अट्रैक्शन which is actually keeping the atmosphere around the planet. That is why Mercury doesn't have an atmosphere. Venus has practically no atmosphere. Mars doesn't have much of oxygen. से बड़ा planet किंतु तार ऑक्सीजन ना सेतमें ये जो ना मार्स को जोटा पठी अमेरिका वाला से माने they are also trying to convert carbon dioxide. They are trying to bring create oxygen out of carbon dioxide, and they say that they have been successful. ना काली जदि मनुष्य को पठेक हम से ऑक्सीजन दरकार ऑक्सीजन तो एटमॉस्फेयर ना पण आम एटमॉस्फेयर अच्छी वी आर वेरी लकी वी हैव a sufficient amount of temperature which is very comfortable for life to exist. We have right amount of oxygen which is required for life to exist, and that is because of the mass of the earth. That is because mass आदि सान होता कि बहुत बड़ा होता ताले हमें एतिक ऑक्सीजन पानी था सब छंदा छंदी एक रचन यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द होल थिंग एटमॉस्फेयर ता नथले ये जो इंफ्रारेड रेडिएशन जोटा सूर्य किरण पड़ी कि रिफ्लेक्टेड के जाउ से ताको धरि के रखि पारन तेणु धरिक न रखि पारे जो टेम्परेचर जो टेम्परेचर आम कंफर्टेबली बंचुचे से टेम्परेचर न था तेणु आम मर जाता तेणु गैस हो बा टेम्परेचर हो बा वर्षा हो सबुति एक्चुअली atmosphere is essential. This atmosphere is actually like the womb of the mother for a child.
Sir, good evening.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, is there any anti-gravity concept is possible?
Oh, anti-gravity is possible. ଯେମିତି ଆଣ୍ଟି ପାର୍ଟିକଲ ଅଛି ସେମିତି କୋଉଠି ଗୋଟେ ଥିବ କିନ୍ତୁ ଆମର ତ ଆମେ କୋଉଠି ତ ଏପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ତାର ଇଏ ପାଇନୁ we have not found any signature of it. Anti-gravity means repulsion, isn't it? For example, dark energy যদি ଥିବ তাহলে dark energy ଆଉ dark matter will always attract gravitationally. Dark energy will actually repel. So that repulsion people say is responsible for the accelerated expansion of the universe. ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ତେଣୁ ସେଇଟା ଆଣ୍ଟିଗ୍ରାଭିଟି ରିପଲସନ୍ ମାନେ ଆଣ୍ଟିଗ୍ରାଭିଟି ତେଣୁ ଯଦି ଭ୍ୟାକ୍ୟୁମ୍ ଏନର୍ଜି ବି ଥିବ ଭ୍ୟାକ୍ୟୁମ୍ ଏନର୍ଜି ୱିଲ୍ ବି ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସିବଲ୍ ଫର୍ ରିପଲସନ୍ ସୋ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ଇଜ୍ ଆଣ୍ଟିଗ୍ରାଭିଟି ତେଣୁ କିନ୍ତୁ ଆମେ ତ କୌଣସି ମେଟେରିଆଲ
ଦେଖାଯାଏନି
ନା 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 ନହେଲେ ଆର୍ଥ ରହିପାରିବ ଯେମିତି ଆଣ୍ଟି ପାର୍ଟିକଲ ଯଦି ଚାରିଆଡ଼େ ଥାନ୍ତା ସେ ଆଉ କ'ଣ ସେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ପାର୍ଟିକଲ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ମିଶିକିରି ଆନିଲେଟ୍ କରିଦିଅନ୍ତା ସବୁ ପୋଡ଼ି ପାଡ଼ି ଯାଆନ୍ତା ମାନେ ସାଧାରଣ ଭାଷାରେ କହିଲେ ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ବି ନଥାନ୍ତୁ ମନେକର ମ୍ୟାନ୍ ଥାନ୍ତା ଗୋଟେ ଆଣ୍ଟି ମ୍ୟାନ୍ ଥାନ୍ତା God has been very kind just as you are very kind towards the teachers the God is also very kind towards the human beings.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, what is the composition of black holes?
Oh, it is just matter. One doesn't know. Black hole is black hole. So, whatever we can say at the moment is that black hole can have three characteristics. One is mass, another is charge, another is angular momentum. You can have any one of them or you can have any combination of them. And these solutions, they are actually space-time solutions to the Einstein's field equation. And they are called black holes because the density of matter or energy, whatever they are, is so dense that even light cannot escape its gravitational pull. So we don't see it. So we have to see it indirectly. And मनकर मुझे एमती देखैली गोटे तुमको गोटे ग्राफ जे हमर गैलेक्सी रो मझिरे गोटे ब्लैक होल अछि किंतु से ब्लैक होल को हम देखुनु but we see the orbit of the stars, three stars in fact, going around one center. So therefore that is more or less conclusive proof of the fact that there is something highly massive which is responsible for this kind of motion of the stars around it. So that should be the position of the massive black hole at the center of our galaxy.
If we contact to the black hole, what will be the situation with it?
मरी जीवा मुझे ना मरी जीवा आमे से जे जीवा के स्टार्टअप मोला बेले जाएंगे ब्लैक होल होची जो मैसिव स्टार जो गुडा को ए ब्लैक होल गुडा होची केमि ओके लेट मी आल्सो एक्सप्लेन there are many kinds of black hole there are very small black holes which are created at the early epoch of the universe those are called primordial black holes then there are black holes which are created as the last or the dead body of the stars. So if some star is born with a mass around 20-30 solar mass, that will die as a black hole. Just as you have read in your statistical mechanics course that a sun-like star will die as a white dwarf, and the mass of the white dwarf cannot be greater than 1.4 solar mass. Yes, 1.4 solar mass, that is Chandrasekhar limit. Similarly, you can calculate what will be the maximum mass of a neutron star. If the star is slightly more massive, let's say when it is born, it is 8 times, 10 times, 15, 17, 20 times the mass of the sun, then those stars will die as neutron stars. And their mass maximum will be 2-3 solar masses. But if the star which is born with a mass like 50, 100 solar mass, then they will die like black hole. So those are called stellar black holes. Let me complete. So they are called stellar black holes. That's the last stage of the stars which were born with a mass around 30, 40, 50 or 100 solar masses. But how these how these supermassive black holes which are sitting at the center of the galaxy are born, nobody knows. Some people think that probably smaller black holes have actually coalesced together to give those supermassive black holes. But anyway, this is also an area of research even today, and people are working on it. So there are 3 kinds of black holes actually. There is another kind which is called intermediate, but roughly these 3 kinds.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Point taken.
Sir, universe ଯେତେବେଳେ ବିଗ୍ ବ୍ୟାଙ୍ଗ ହେଇଥିଲା ସେତେବେଳେ early stage ରେ ଆମର ସବୁ ଫଣ୍ଡାମେଣ୍ଟାଲ ପାର୍ଟିକଲ୍ସ ଗୁଡା କ୍ରିଏଟ ହେଇଥିଲା। ସାର୍ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆଟମ ତିଆରି ହେଲା ତ ଆଟମ ର ଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ଚର ଜାଣିଛୁ ଯେ ଗୋଟେ ନ୍ୟୁକ୍ଲିୟସ୍ ଅଛି ତା ଭିତରେ ପ୍ରୋଟନ ନ୍ୟୁଟ୍ରନ ଅଛନ୍ତି ଆଉ ଇଲେକ୍ଟ୍ରନ ରିଭଲ୍ଭ କରୁଛି ନ୍ୟୁକ୍ଲିୟସ୍ ଚାରିପଟେ। ସେମିତି ନ୍ୟୁଟ୍ରନ ପ୍ରୋଟନ ଆଉ ଆଟମ ଆଜ ଏ ହୋଲ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ଚର ହଉଛି ପ୍ରୋଟନ ନ୍ୟୁଟ୍ରନ इलेक्ट्रॉन 3टा सर व्हाई द नंबर 3 माने 3टा कौन है
कौन 3टा कौन
माने सर एटम रो सर इलेक्ट्रॉन गोटे होची तापर न्यूक्लियस भीतर प्रोटॉन न्यूट्रॉन दीटा सेमिति प्रोटॉन और न्यूट्रॉन को भागले ता भीतर भी जो क्वार्क भी 3टा मिलुची
प्रोटॉन न्यूट्रॉन 3टा माने 3टा कौन बुझबो
से प्रोटॉन न्यूट्रॉन को जदि हमें भागी की ता भीतर देखिया माने तार इंटरनल स्ट्रक्चर
यस
सर 3टा क्वार्क हम पाउछु ना सर सेमति सर माने एटम ता आज होल से भी सेम 3टा पार्टिकल की नहीं है न्यूट्रॉन प्रोटॉन इलेक्ट्रॉन
3टा पार्टिकल ले कौन माने 3टा तो पार्टिकल नो केते प्रोटॉन अछन केते न्यूट्रॉन अछन 3टा कौन 3टा टाइप रो कोजो
ये सर 3टा टाइप हां माने
3टा टाइप रो है कि अछि आ we can say तमे तो पचारो इलेक्ट्रॉन मास काहे के एति गेला we don't know electron charge काहे के एति गेला we don't know why electron charge is quantized we have some explanation but those are still not foolproof explanations.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can we get a better picture of the universe by using gravitational waves?
Gravitational waves.
Sir, gravitational waves is
gravitational waves that we have detected. Yes, you can certainly get a better picture. You can, in this sense. For example, you see, I wrote one article in our Odisha Physical Society journal that gravitational wave is like the third eye of Lord Shiva. Why third eye? Because anyway, we are probing this physical universe with respect to using some waves, either electromagnetic wave or sound wave, because you are interacting with me for the time being using light wave as well as sound wave. So gravitational wave is the third wave with which you can also understand very many things, because that's another regime which was closed to us, but now it's open. So because it has a very tiny wavelength and a very small energy, etc., etc. So, but still you can use it. Maybe we'll be able to use gravitational wave to understand the early part of the universe better, because we did not get anything from those things. Light did not come because light was mostly interacting with charged particles. So the universe was more or less opaque. Maybe we can understand better the early part of the universe. Maybe you can understand better the black hole characteristics. Yes, we can use that as an instrument to understand things which we have not understood using light wave and the sound wave. Light wave means I mean electromagnetic wave, all the range of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yes, sir.
सर से
Thank you.
डॉपलर इफेक्ट रे हमें सेटा को रेड शिफ्ट काहे के कहउचे जो shifting होची spectral line रो
because it
red
is
shift
shifting
काहे
towards the ना काहे कहूचे नहीं, it is shifting towards the red end of the spectrum. It is shifting to the larger wavelength. Shifting towards larger wavelength is called red shift. Shifting towards smaller wavelength is called blue shift.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have another question, sir.
Yes.
Sir, does a black hole come to an end? Like, is there
Black
a life come to an
Black
end,
hole?
sir? Like, sir, does black hole
what?
ever end? Sir, के पास सारे की black hole, like end of life black hole रो?
Oh, this is a good question. Yes, there are some tiny black holes, the primordial black holes, which will actually radiate out. This radiation business was given to us first time in 1965 by, or 72, by Stephen Hawking. This is known as Hawking radiation. So these black holes actually radiate. We say that nothing can come out of it, but there is a mechanism by which actually black holes can lose their mass or lose their energy. And if they are small enough, then maybe in millions or billion years of time, they would actually become extinct. Yes, they can lose them. But big ones, it's very difficult for them to evaporate away. Yes, there is a black hole evaporation through Hawking radiation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
सर स्पेस और टाइम द्वारा अलग अलग फिजिकल क्वांटिटी ताले से हम स्पेस टाइम कर्वेचर कंपेयर होचे
कोनटा
सर स्पेस टाइम कर्वेचर कंपेयर होचे सर द्वारा तो अलग अलग क्वांटिटी स्पेस आउट टाइम
अलग अलग नुआ सेइदा तो आइंस्टाइन देखले दे आर नॉट सेपरेट दे आर इंटिमेटली रिलेटेड टू ईच अदर की कहला तुम पुणी अलग अलग आताल स्पेशल तो रिलेटिविटी पढिलो काई they have different characteristics associated with them, but they also have intimate relationship between them. What is invariant in a physical theory is the interval which is defined as c square dt square minus dl square. That is an invariant quantity. So if c square dt square increases, dl square has to decrease. If dl square increases, c square dt square also has to increase, so that the difference between them remains constant. So that is how time and space coordinates were related to each other. Even though they are characteristically different, but they are related. That's what Einstein showed us. So our physical world is a four-dimensional world of space-time. Not, do you understand? That's what I think I also clarified in the class.
Yes.
That is what special theory relativity means. They are related to each other. When string theory people say that the string theory will make sense in 10 dimension or 11 dimension, what do they mean? They mean that there should be 10 space dimension, 1 time dimension. But they are related.
Yes, sir. Sir, as sir we discuss करले sir from void we get everything. तो sir
From void?
के जण को yes sir किछ नथिला सेडु आमे सर बिग बैंग थला हम सब किछ पाइले. तो सर
Big Bang
एमिति
hella.
सर
Big Bang hella nahi. Big Bang hella.
हल्ला
For some reasons which we did not discuss, which we clearly don't know. So that's why we assumed that as our starting point. Yes. What is the question?
सर एमिति भी पर सर यूनिवर्स आगुर पूरा पूरा फुल थिबो. और सर फ्यूजन हेगरी एम्प्टी
ठीक है
स्पेस
बहुत
और
ही. Why are you repeating the same? Type of font thibo एमिति हेई पर से तो कहली Penrose is also saying that it could be a cyclic universe. But the model that I discussed, which is called standard cosmological model, there you assume that this is how the universe is created. That is Big Bang model creation of the universe. So we start with that assumption. So then you have to calculate all the characteristics, you have to have some physical quantities which will be measurable in laboratories, then compare those values. As I said, the standard model of cosmology already has many successes. So if another model also has those successes intact and some more successes to add to it, then obviously that will be a better model. Yes. ଏମିତି ବି ହେଇପାରେ କେ ମନା କରୁନି
Sir, is
ବୁଝିପାରିଲ
information lost in a black hole?
just a minute
Yes, sir.
Suman yes
Sir, is information
yes
lost in a black hole?
yes yes because nothing comes out of it if you pump something into it but nothing comes out of it obviously there is an information loss that is what is known as information loss paradox it absorbs everything but never gives out anything obviously there is an information loss तमे समस्त कथा सुनिबो काउ किछि कहबो नै there is an information loss तेणु तम संगे जे कथाबार्ता होतबो से तार से पळेबो ना से रहइबो का isn't it so there is an information loss तार सब कथा तमे जानिलो किंतु तमे तम कथा किछि ताको कहलो black hole is say out mathematically कहले there is a violation of unitarity there is a violation of probability quantum mechanics you must have read that a probability is conserved isn't it if there is a loss of probability from some place it appears as a gain of probability in some other but here we have no way of communicating with the black hole so that is why we say there is a information loss paradox for it's something like this mum काठटा को जळी देली काठटा को जळी देला पर अंगार हे गेला काठ भितर जहा किछि इंफॉर्मेशन थिला शक्ति थिला जा थिला से कोड गेला किंतु किछि लोक को जंदी जदी अंगार को कोनसी प्रकार पुणी काठ करी पारिबो ताले यू विल गेट बैक द इंफॉर्मेशन so this is a big interesting puzzle so this is also another area where anybody who works on black holes actually they work on these kind of things you have to do a lot of sophisticated mathematics and you have to be very imaginative, intuitive. Yes, it's a good. These are good questions. Prerana kemti asti? Yes.
Sir, actually, we have studied in relativity. Actually, ds square equal to c square dt square minus dr square. But today you have write under this equation d square equal to c square dt square minus r square t all over dr square by 1 minus kr square plus r square d theta square plus sin square थे d phi square. Sir, so से equation में कुछ बुझियो
ना से बुझियो ना
अच्छा सेटा अलगा पड़ती है एटा अलगा
ना ना एटा अलगा टिके हबो काइना ओके सेटा को कोन थिला सेटा थिला c square dt square minus dx square
yes sir
isn't it okay dx
yes,
vector square dx vector square को जदी r theta phi रे लिखिबो कोन हबो
yes sir r
square d theta square then r square sin square theta d phi square
yes sir
so ei jo तेणु दीटा टर्म तो मिसी गला
yes sir
okay खाली dr square जगह रे एठी अछि dr square divided by 1 minus kr k टा होछि well that k takes care of the curvature of the space time in Minkowski space we don't talk about curvature of space time it's actually Euclidean it's an Minkowskian so all the terms in the metric tensor are constants I think do you understand me
yes sir
yes so therefore there is a 1 minus k square if you put k is equal to 0 it is just dr square r square d theta square plus r square d sin square theta d phi square so that is exactly equal to dx square now the only extra factor is rt square that rt square comes because we have actually taken a different kind of assumption about the space-time now because it's a general relativistic space-time which would actually satisfy the Einstein field equation. So therefore, it is multiplied by a factor which is time dependent, RT. That RT is called scale factor. So that is why we interpret as more or less as the size of the spatial part of the universe. And k is equal to 0 denotes spatially flat universe. K equal to +1 denotes positively curved spatial part of the universe. K equal to -1 represents negatively curved spatial part of the universe. So therefore,
But
k
now-
parameter, just a minute, k parameter therefore reflects the nature of the curvature of the spatial part, not the temporal part.
Thank you, sir.
So you are not very far away from the special relativity, but certainly far away from it, because we are dealing with a different kind of physical system. There our space-time was flat, but here our space-time is curved. And that curvature is showing up in the parameter k as well as RT.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Any other question? Okay. So if you don't have questions, it was nice having you here, and I hope there was something for you in this webinar. Because I was talking to people in Anandapur College, in Mahasi College, in FM College Baleshwar, as well as to some students of NICER. So I just thought that maybe I will also share these things with you, our own students. So that was the basic inspiration for holding this webinar. So thank you very much for your kind attention and presence.
Thank you, sir.
You could take
Thank
out.
you, sir.
You could take out time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
For very busy schedule, as always. Okay. So I wish you all very best, because this is a very bad disease. And this is taking. It is highly infectious and very cruel disease. It looks like. Okay. So